And welcome aboard, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Live. I'm Steve Lee. How are you guys doing? It has been a hell of a weekend, but we made it. Here we are. What do I got to tell you? We're going to be working on a cool Halloween thing tonight. A little bit of paintbrush stuff, so a little bit different. But we'll get into that in a minute. I do only have one 543 because things are still really crazy. I have a big painting that I'm trying to finish. I had a little run-in with a staircase this weekend, which was fun, which slowed things down. So I got one painting for you, but I think it's a good one, and it'll be fun. So we'll show you that one. The only business on board is to thank Honey for her super thanks, and also our new member, Adam Cottrill, or if Adam, I'm probably butchering your name. I'm super sorry about that, but welcome to What Could Go Wrong. That's what could go wrong. Yeah, the only other order of business, and I posted, I pinned a comment, the Chevelle painting. Go get this now. Do it. I'm going to give you guys the little heads up. I'm going to run a quick fall sale. It's going to be 20% off everything in the store, including 543s and that kind of stuff. I'm not sure when that's going to launch, but it should be fairly soon, within a couple days. But when that happens, this one goes back up to its regular price. So if you want to get this one at a crazy deal, get this painting now. So do that. And then I will let you guys know when the other sale is going on. That's all I got. We're going to just get right to it. So yay, well, let's do it. All right. Tonight, I got to get to this too. I'm working on this. And I didn't see... Let me jump back to see who's here. I'll say hello to everyone. Dan, what's up? Oh, I missed it. What happened there? I cleared out the live chat. God. Dan Mayer, what's up? Kyle, what's happening? Mark R. Yeah, Mark, it's been a hell of a weekend. Hey, Patty, what's up? Auntie Paula, what's up? Yeah, buddy, I'm glad you're here, Mr. Cheese. Chris Garcia, what's going on? Cheers to that. I do have a cheers for tonight because the pain meds aren't doing it. Wayne, what's going on, buddy? Wayne, I missed you jumping on last week. I know you were late, but I didn't say hello. So hello, Wayne. What's going on, buddy? Rhea, what's good? Yeah, it was fun. Brian, James Cully, what's going on? Hello, Brian Moore. Brother Robert, what's up? Swan Picker, what's good? I think we got everyone so far that's here. Yay, Dan Mayer. I think I got you, Dan. Brian Dunbar. Hello, Brian Dunbar. Welcome. Robert O'Malley, hello. Mike Manning, hello. Raul, what's good? All right. So this week's single and only painting comes from your friend and mine, Cheese Grits and NyQuil. You will also know him now as Western Massacre Lock Sport because he has a cool channel that deals with lock picking. But I have found interest in lock picking, and he is fueling that interest for me. So I'm going to do a new mail call video, but I got to figure out how to transfer the videos from my iPhone since never had an iPhone before, but that's a whole other thing. But anyway, I'm going to do a separate video on what he sent me, but it's a bunch of cool lock picking stuff to get started. So here is one of the cool things he sent. These are awesome stickers that he has made up, and I got to get awesome stickers as well. Here we go. So but his suggestion last week was a fun one, and it was a clear lock. So since I'm going to be getting into this, what the heck? So this is what I got for this. And I call this one just Picker. I was going to call it Yeah Buddy, but I also have a painting. I already have a painting called Yeah Buddy. And so I couldn't name it that, but that's what this one is. And I'll get you close in. This is neat. I didn't think this was a thing. I thought he was just, looking for a, exploded view of a lock. But there are lock picking companies that sell practice locks that you can actually see through. This one I think is from Sparrow. But in any event, it's a very cool thing, and it's going to be a lot of fun to mess with. And I have a book to read and videos to watch, but I'll be picking locks hopefully shortly, which will be fun. So you'll also notice a bunch of fun new people here because Cheese has been pushing my site on his site, which is amazing. So go check out him too. But a lot of great new people are here, including Swamp, which is here, and he won last week. So that was fun too. So that's the only one I got. So if you win tonight, congratulations. I'm going to do one further. Cheese sent me a few of these, so I'm going to include the sticker with this, and you can get into that. If you win tonight, you can choose this painting, or I'll go out on a limb. We're doing a 543 sort of tonight. If you win tonight, you can also choose the painting we're going to work on today. If not, both or whatever, go on my website after. You guys know the drill. All right. Thanks, Mr. Cheese. I'm either going to call you that or Mr. Western. Cheese sounds better, though. All right, so here's what we got going on. So you saw the little intro picture, the little pumpkin that I found online. Cool picture. Someone carved this awesome pumpkin. And I thought that would be fun to use it as kind of a basis for our little painting tonight. So this is the 543. I've got it already set up, and I did a little sketch on here. Show you a little pumpkin head skeleton dude kind of popping out of, I don't know, maybe kind of a grave thing. And there's a graveyard in the background. And so this will be my 543. And there's the pumpkin that I was inspired by. So it'll be fun. What I wanted to do with this one, though, it's a little bit different than the normal 543. Is usually the 543s are primarily airbrushed. And then I do a little bit of paintbrush and it's done. This one I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to do a lot more paintbrush on this and then just kind of use the airbrush a little bit. And this is for the people who are looking to get into airbrush but don't really want to do like complete airbrush painting. They just want to incorporate it into their work or just get started. When you're getting started, you know, you might be more comfortable with a paintbrush and you just want to start kind of like getting the airbrush in with some of the stuff. So that's what tonight is all about. We'll get as far as we can. Again, if you win tonight, you can take this painting. If not, it'll go up for the regular 543 price, which is a bargain. And yeah, a little bit of everything. So there we go. I saw Skull Squad. Mike is here. I was going to say, is Mike here? There we go. Mike's been doing some great videos too. So good to see his live, not his live, but his booth set up, and he just runs the camera so you can watch him work. It's a blast. All my artwork is down, but I got a great painting from Mike too. All right, so we're just going to jump into this thing. It's going to be mostly freehand and paintbrush, so we'll use the palette cam and all that, but we'll get to it. So first thing I want to do is the background, and you can just barely see it. I'll move this down so you can really see it. I've put in these cool little gravestones and stuff, so they're going to be in the background. I want that to kind of be like glowing and foggy. So glowing and foggy automatically means airbrush. The paintbrush can do it, but it'll give a much more painterly, like watercolor type look. But the airbrush does a great job at this. So that's what we're going to do with this. Thanks, man. It's going to be fun. I don't know if this is going to be in color yet, but we'll figure it out. So let's start with, all right, so I go back to front, which is the other thing too. It's easier to cover the background stuff with the foreground stuff than it is to paint the foreground stuff and then try to paint the background around it. No matter how hard I try, and even when I mask it, the background always seems to pop forward. It seems to feel like it's in front. So Kelly Drake, what's going on? Kelly Drake, hello, what's going on? Jeebus. It's going to be that kind of day, and you will hear random winces of pain. So pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. All right, so I'm going to start with opaque white. Now I've got the sketch kind of dark on here because I know I'm going to be painting over it. So I'm going to want to see it for as long as I can before it's gone. And I'm not using any masks or anything. We're just going to kind of go for it. Que pasa, Mufasa. That's great. All right, let me get the water out of here. Sorry about that. Oh, nah, never mind. All right, white first. So again, just going to start kind of blowing this in like kind of in randomly. So again, you don't need a ton of airbrush control to do something like this, which is nice. what you need to be able to do is just rock the trigger back and forth. I'll do it in this little section right here. So all I'm doing is taking the airbrush and I'm just rocking the trigger back and forth. This is an exaggerated version of it, but it's essentially what I'm doing here. I am not pulling it back as far to get that to happen here, but it's the same exact motion. So this just allows the paint to kind of turn on and off, and I'm keeping the airbrush pretty far back, and I'm not looking for any, detail or any wispy smoke or anything like that. Just kind of like letting it do its thing. And I'm going about halfway up on this background. If you guys have any questions, let her rip. Just curious, who's going to SEMA? Oh, nice. That's awesome. I am not. My daughter is getting married the first week of November, which we're all super excited about. So that only takes me off the list of going, but it also takes me off the list of doing any work. So this will be the first year that I don't have anything at SEMA, artwork-wise. But I'll be thinking of you guys. Oh, that's awesome, Brian. Yeah, the cameo, I don't know much about plotters. That's a Marge thing. But I know that's a popular one, so I know you'll do cool things with it. And I haven't seen Ian yet. I hope he's doing good. I know his wife is recovering. It's been a week since her surgery, a little bit longer. But I really hope she's doing good. So hopefully we'll get an Ian's sighting, although it's okay. Yeah, so Brian, I am going to airbrush a lot of this. I mean, paintbrush a lot of this. You'll see that in a few. So the airbrush is just going to be like kind of the crutch. But I started off with the airbrush because it does what I'm about to do really, really well. It does that foggy thing really, really well. So now I'm going to add the rest of the smoke in, or the atmosphere. And this I just have opaque black. So I'm going to do the same thing, but kind of from the opposite direction. And this is really highly reduced. It's about 10 parts reducer to 1 part paint. And I'm just going to kind of float in the same kind of thing, but from the top. And what happens is when you do that, it gives it this foggy, kind of misty feeling. Now again, with a paintbrush and acrylic paints, what I just did right there took, no time at all. But it's nearly impossible with a paintbrush and acrylic paints, because it just, they don't want to blend like that with brushes. You have to water it way down, and then it looks more like watercolor, which is fine, but it still has brush strokes, which you might want. Mike Manning, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, Mike, thank you. All right, so there we go. So that's going to work. Now, notice I didn't do any down below, because I want a lot of contrast between the gravestones. What am I trying to say? The gravestones and the other stuff. So now we're going to switch to paintbrush. So to do that, is this going to work? Yeah. Yeah, it's going to work. Oh, yeah. All right. I'm going to put out some new black. And again, we're going to use mostly just black. I may do the pumpkin head in orange. That might be fun. There's Ian. Ian, how's your lovely wife doing? And Michael McClung, what's good, buddy? Michael, I had a hell of a weekend, so I didn't see any live feeds, or I didn't do anything this weekend other than be dumb. All right. All right, so the next step is, again, I'm just taking this layer by layer. So the background way out back is first. The next thing on the list are these cool little gravestones. I'll get that word right. Holy crap, my brain. And I'm not on, like, narcotic drugs. It's just a leave, but this hasn't been a lot of sleeping. All right, so this is straight up black, right off the palette, right out of the bottle. And now I'm just going to paint in the edge of this and the details on the gravestones. Again, now, so we're talking about like what the airbrush does well and what the paintbrush does well. Now, obviously the paintbrush does this kind of stuff really, really well. If I wanted to do this with the airbrush, I'd have to cut out a mask for it, to get it kind of sharp like this. Now, the nice thing about this painting is there's going to be like a play between the airbrush strokes, that smooth airbrush stuff, and then these, you know, kind of raggedy type paintbrush stuff. And that's what I want. I want the difference in the details. So as the edge of this gravestone kind of like, or these gravestones in the graveyard kind of comes down, I'm going to specifically give it kind of a grumbled up look. You know, I'm going to scumble it a little bit just so it looks like dirt. You know what I mean? Like it's just that edge. Again, doing this with the airbrush, you need to use something like Gerald's texture stencil, which is great. You can do that. But again, I want to kind of show you how you can get this painting done if your airbrush skills are maybe not where you want them yet, or you just, you know, you prefer using paintbrush more. It all works. It's just, again, it boils down to picking their strengths. So as I get down to the ribs, I'm going to kind of deal with all that separately. So we're just going to do this background section first. Then we'll deal with the other stuff. And then I got two things going on up here. I've got this little background bit. You see that? Yeah. Background bit of gravestones. We'll do a big gravestone here. Ian, welcome to What Could Go Wrong. Welcome back. I think you're already in there. All right, so there's my in the background one. I'm going to show you what to do with that in a few minutes. There we go. And then the kind of, that's the like the one in the distance-ish kind of. And then this will be the one that's a little bit closer. Crumble that up, get that kind of down here. And then give me that sweet, sweet gravestone. I should do the What Could Go Wrong for Patty on this, because Patty, I think it was Patty who was suggesting a What Could Go Wrong gravestone for Halloween. And Patty's been doing some great stuff on her channel too. I don't know if she's here, but if she is, follow Patty C. You're a friend of mine. She's doing some really cool stuff too. She just picked up one of those spray gunner Halloween themed airbrush holders, and she's painting it. So they've got a cool thing going on with that right now. All right, so there you go. So that's the background. I'm just going to kind of fill that in a little bit more. What else are we going to do? All right, so the next thing is this kind of the background here, the middle ground. Now, filling this in with the airbrush is going to be the easiest. I mean, I could do it with the paintbrush, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of both. So again, it's going to be faster. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to get a bunch of black paint on, you know, the skeleton parts, even though like his chest is going to be kind of dark because it's going to kind of go tuck in. Wait, Brian, what? Keep asking what? Oh, lightning storm? Oh. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want something, a good way to do it is to keep asking for it. So anyway, the background, I'm going to kind of use a little bit of both. So what I'm going to do is first off, I got to get away from the edge of the skeleton. So I got to make sure that whatever I do here, I'm not, when I get the airbrush going, I'm not super close to the parts that need to be airbrushed. So I'm just going to kind of paint real rough around it. Again, you know, I don't want to be too careful, but I also don't want to make a mess either. So I'm just going to kind of poke around or along the outside edge. So I painted the edge, and then I'm just kind of like pushing the paintbrush around. This brush is one of my Winsor Newton brushes, but it's an older one. You never want to do what I'm doing here with this kind of brush, because these brushes are super nice. They're watercolor brushes, and they won't last very long. So that's what I do. I keep the older ones that aren't, you know, that don't have the point that they used to, because they are older. Then I can use it on this. But this will wreck a brush. This scumbling thing will do a good job at really messing up a brush. So you don't really want to, you know, do this with a good brush. Now you can buy a cheaper brush. In fact, I'll show you how that works. This little guy here is just an inexpensive detail brush. So you can tell it's inexpensive. Let me, I will show you, I'll focus. This is what happens with all brushes, but inexpensive brushes, it happens super fast. Expensive brushes like this will happen about a year into me using the Winsor Newton ones. But these things, see the hook on the end of that? That happens almost right away with a cheap brush. So if you're getting detail, if you want detail out of it, that's where these things fall short. They might work for, you know, a little bit at the beginning, but they don't want to work for any length of time. But they're great. Again, I don't throw much out because these brushes are great for this. You know, I can get close to what I need here. And again, I'm just trying to pull this out a little bit so it's away from the edge of his hand. And then I'm just going to kind of do this random texture thing. There we go. Same thing in here. I've got the edge, got his forearm, the whatever the ground is he's crawling over. And if you wondered where I got the images for this, I just kind of go online and look up, you know, skeleton or jack-o'-lantern or graveyard or whatever. And then I take, you know, a little bit of everything and I just kind of piece them together and come out with a rough idea and then work the sketch from there. So you're like the human version of AI, but better. All right, so there we go. So that gets me away from the edge a little bit. So now I'll get to the airbrush part of it. What I do want to do though, since I'm here, I will take a good brush, a little bit of black, since I am here, and I'm going to save myself. This looks like it's going to take, you know, like an extra step, but it really will save me a lot of time in the long run. What I'm doing is I'm painting the background in between things like the ribs that, oh, I did them in the wrong order, whatever. You know, painting between things like the ribs, and that way I don't have to worry too much about, you know, the getting paint everywhere. Front to back or back to front. Okay, Brian, that's a great question. So the reason why is because if I did the let's say I did oh my God, the gravestones, and I did them first, I would have to mask them off to do the wispy stuff in the background, right? Because if I didn't, I would just get, let me make sure that's focused. Because if I did the gravestones and then sprayed the white over it, it would give a cool wispy effect, which you're going to see on this one. But I'd have to repaint them all in anyway. So I still work back to front even when I'm paintbrushing. But yeah, if it's a really complex object, like say I was doing like the $2 bill painting, but only using brushes, or even airbrush, you can just kind of paint whatever because everything's almost on the same plane, and they're almost divided anyway. You know what I mean? Well, they maybe have one thing in front of another. They're pretty much, you know, pretty much all one thing. But yeah, I usually always go back to front. There we go. So that gets kind of the background knocked out roughly without having to worry about, now I don't have to worry about the edges. All right, so let's do the white real quick. Show you what I mean by that. You guys can still see everything. I'm not going to zoom in and out because it'll be obnoxious. White. Yeah. So for the white, like for this gravestone up here in the corner, I want to add a little bit of mist in front of it. So this is what we're talking about. Again, excuse me. Paintbrush does a real good job at the hard lines, but nothing does this foggy, misty stuff like the airbrush does. Now, I don't really care about overspray and blah, blah, blah on this. And I also don't care about blue shift either because we're just doing this quick. Oh, Ian, this is going to be like a jack-o'-lantern skull dude coming out of the ground. All right, so let's finish up the background now with the gravestones. Oh, that hurts like a mother. All right, so I'm going to bump this up a little bit. This is really thin black. So it's 1 part paint to 10 parts reducer, but I'm going to bump this up to 1 part reducer to 5 parts paint. So that way I get a little bit more opacity here so I can fill in the blanks a little bit. Yeah, that's a good general rule, Brian. Again, It's going to depend on what you're painting too. All right, so let me get some of the black flowing. This is the really light black that's still in the brush, so we're going to knock some of that out. I didn't flush it out or anything. I may have to go to 1:1. Just because I want to kind of get this done quick. Yeah, I'm going to go to the 1:1. This is 1 part paint to 1 part reducer, so it's going to be a lot more opaque. Excellent, Michael. Yeah, I knew he was taking a break. I didn't want to push him. I'm glad, though. That's good. All right, so this is 1:1. 1 part paint to 1 part reducer. So this is going to cover a lot quicker. So what I want to do is I want to kind of blend this area here that's going to be completely black, which again, the airbrush does fills really, really well. We're nice and even and everything, but it's going to kind of fade into this crumbly stuff that I've done. Again, this doesn't take a tremendous amount of airbrush skill. All I got to do is kind of creep up on that area that I hand painted. And then what's nice about it is your eye will do the rest. So your eye will see that crumbly area right next to the skeleton, and it'll just drag it out into the rest of it. It'll assume it's there. Same thing here. I'm just going to kind of lightly darken, yikes. See, there's oxymorons, and then there's me, which is just a moron. Yay. Same deal here. Just going to kind of run over this a little bit and just kind of blend it in. But again, for the airbrush work, this is super general. You know, you don't need a tremendous amount of super detailed skills to do this. And, you know, if you feel you can't even get down this small, you can do more paintbrushing and then just run in after with the airbrush and just hit it lightly to kind of blend it out a little bit. But that's it. That's the background. So the background's all done. You get this cool kind of, you know, misty, whatever. All right, so now we're going to deal with the, there he is, Mr. Down and Dirty Scott McKay Tricks. Mr. Down and Scott Dirty Tricks McKay. Mr. Dirty Scott Tricks Tips McKay. Welcome, buddy. All right, so I've got a little bit of a shadow here that I thought would be kind of cool. So in essence, I want to get, you know, this not as dark as the background. That'll also help it pop forward. If it was all super dark, you know, you'd be across the board. Now, technically, the rib cage and his head are behind this lump of dirt here, but the hands are in front of it. So that's the way we're going to kind of treat it. There's a nice line that cuts across where he intersects that. So that kind of makes it easy to do this part first. And then it just lets me concentrate on the skeleton at the end. All right, so let's do that. So what am I going to do with that? I don't know. I want to make it different than, I've already sprayed this all. I didn't mention it. I sprayed it all with Autoborn Sealer Gray. So it's got this really quite a cool gray already in it. So what do I want to do here? Do I want to give it kind of texture? Yeah, let's do that. All right, for this, I really should use a gray. It breaks the 543 rule where it's just black and white. With almost all those 543s, I literally only use black and white. And any grays you see are either the background or, you know, like a fade from the airbrush. But I could just leave it. Yeah, I could just leave it. Or I could do that. Let's do that. All right, so we're gonna cheat a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my Autoborn Sealer Gray. I'm gonna put a little bit out on the palette, and I am gonna make a gray out of this, a darker gray. Put some of that out. A little bit of opaque black. So we want something just a hair darker than what's already there. Now you notice, hopefully you can see it. Yeah, I'm not mixing the black into the whole drop. I'm just mixing it into half the drop so I can get the value I want. If I want it lighter, I can pull a little bit more gray in. And if I have to make it darker, I can add another, grab a little bit more black. But this is just a nice way to do it. So that's probably going to work right there. All right, same deal here. So I want to see what this looks like. Hopefully it'll be a little bit darker. Is that dark enough? Yeah. Yeah, so same deal here. So I'm going to kind of run around the hands. Those are the parts that are going to be out on the, the main part of it here. And this will darken up as it dries a little bit too, so you'll see this a little bit better when I get it there. And then I want to run along the edge too. I don't have to worry about the shadow. We'll get to that in a second, but just where the edge is. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did with the background, but we're just going to use a bigger paintbrush. Kind of has a cool effect. Elroy, what's up? Welcome. So again, for new people, if you want to win a painting, just type in 543 and then give me a suggestion for one of these black and white paintings. Whether I paint it or not, all you got to do is make the suggestion and then you're in for a chance to win one of these next week. You don't even have to be here when I draw your name. I mean, there's always a chance that I will paint your suggestion. I'm supposed to get back to 5 of them eventually, but once the craziness is over of what's going on, I'll at least get back to 3. All right, so there we go. So I've done the same thing. Essentially I've outlined the areas that are going to be like white, the skeleton parts, but I left all the big areas. So to do the big areas, I'll just use a little bit bigger brush. There we go. And Patty, I don't know if you were on when I mentioned it earlier, but I was talking about your YouTube channel as well. I love that you're doing that spray gunner thing. All right, so same color. I'm just going to grab a bigger brush. This is actually the brush I use to mix paint in the airbrush. So now I can just kind of go in and just kind of fill in the blanks, the bigger areas. So it's the same thing I just did with the airbrush, but now I'm using a paintbrush. Again, I could use the airbrush for this. It would be kind of cool. However, again, I'm going to try to limit the use of the airbrush so that the people who maybe are just getting into airbrushing or don't want to use the airbrush for everything, except the basics, will be able to kind of get something out of it. So there we go. So you could do that with any, this is just a cheap Artist's Loft paintbrush. I think Artist's Loft is Michael's maybe? Who knows? It's cheap and it sucks, and that's all we care about. Honey, you never have to apologize, honey. Honey, I'm glad you're here. Now, Honey purchased one of the cherry paintings from a couple weeks ago. There is another one on the website that is also at the amount that Honey bid, which is only $50. Honey, I'm framing yours, but Honey's I'll show you guys before I ship it out to Honey, because Honey's getting my brand new prototype frame for the bigger paintings, the more involved paintings. I want to have like an open frame concept, and I'm using framing from a really great artist named Gary Irby, New York artist, New Jersey artist, and he does massively huge paintings, but he goes nuts on his framing. Usually they're custom carved or, but he has a real simple one too that I really, really love, and I can adapt it to a real small scale like my scale. So Honey's is going to be the first one. She's going to have the prototype of that. So Honey, it's going to take me a little bit longer, but it'll totally be worth it. The frame will be worth way more than the painting. All right, so I'm also letting that dry a little bit, which it is, but we can speed that up a little bit. What do I have in here? I have the big black in here, right? So I'm just going to blow a little bit of air on this, and as I blow the air on this, you can see it darkening up. Again, I broke my 543. Not that it's a real hard, fast rule, but I try not to do different mixes of colors on here because they tend to slow things down. Oh, we have burning. We're only 30 minutes in. All right, so now I'm going to jump back to the more reduced black, which is probably about 10 to 1. 10 parts reducer to 1 part paint. And I also haven't checked to see how Canadian Post is doing. If we have any of our neighbors from the north still on, let me know if the postal service is up and running again. I have a painting to send up north, and I've been holding off for for the strike to be over. All right. So this is, again, slightly reduced. So now what I'm going to do here is kind of just, oops, there we go, is just kind of vignette the whole thing. So what this does is this allows the top part of it to pop out a little bit and gives it, gives it a little bit more form to this rock here. So again, this is really simple. It's just really light passes across the bottom of the rock and really the bottom of the corners. So you just work in light layers and you go over it more times where you want it dark. So while that looked like, really cool fade, that's, you start here and then lighten up as you go. It's not that at all. If you notice, what I did was I started with a really light layer across the whole thing. And then where I want it darker, I just add more layers, and that creates this really nice fade. Again, you don't have to, you don't have to break your back on it. Now I will do something here that's probably a little bit more advanced, but there's not too many other ways to do this, and that's the shadows on him. The light is basically going to be coming down from the top here. He's going to be the only thing that's lit up. So I want to kind of give his fingers a chance to look like they're sitting on this rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of airbrush right around his fingers on the lower side, and this will give me that shadow around his fingers. The other thing I got to do, which I kind of shouldn't have, I shouldn't have done that. I left a shadow without texture on it. We're going to solve that problem right now, because you're going to see that you would see the lack of texture through the shadow, and we don't want that. So, oh, I'm almost out of that black because there we go. It all mixed together on me. So there we go. That's probably too dark. Oh well. So now I can just kind of fill in the gap here. I should have done that in the first place. Again, I don't know. I wasn't thinking. Honey Rivera, thank you so much. You get a big fat heart. Oh, stop it. There we go. How do you know it's not a he and a she? That is an awesome question. I wish I had the biology background to be able to tell female bones from male bones, because you can tell. But that's a great question. Yeah, I'm gonna plead the fifth on that. I have no idea. Excellent. She always keeps me in line. Is that Gary Shees? What's up, buddy? What's the bid at? No bid, Gary. It's just going to be a run-of-the-mill 543 when it's done. So if the winner grabs it, then that's great. If not, it'll just go up on the site. But the Chevelle painting is still there for anyone who wants it. Again, crazy deal on that. The cherry painting is also up there. The cherry painting is already like way too cheap. So I think what I'll do is to save myself from giving that away when, if I can pull together the new sale, I'll just put that, so that it ends up at the price it's at right now after the sale. All right, so again, this is kind of a little bit higher skill thing, but still not terrible. I'm just going to kind of put the pumpkin head shadow in here, which is basically just where the other thing was, void was. All right, so now we've got the rock done. We've got the background done. So now we can start worrying about the skull and the pumpkin. What time is it? More bits for you later. Yeah, no kidding. Scott's working on a cool mummy painting. I don't know what the bid is. I bugged out before the end of the feed last time, but I did see that Gary opened it up with 200, which was, that's going to be a deal for that. If it's standing at 200, but no matter what, it's going to be a good deal. All right, so let's move on. I think I will do this in color because this is farther than I thought we'd be at the break. We still got 20 minutes before we give away a painting. So we'll have this whole thing done, which will be fun. All right, let's talk about the pumpkin. So if we're going to do the pumpkin head in color, again, this is back to front. So you think about this. Technically, the inside of his, his skull here, whatever, his gourd, is the background, is behind everything, right? It's the the lit up part first and then the carved part second, because that's over the top of it. So that's what we're going to do. To do that, though, I'm going to want some yellow. Do I want golden yellow? I love golden yellow. We're going to use some golden yellow. Again, I love golden yellow as a regular yellow. It's kind of my go-to. But you can do whatever you want, because you're your own person. I'm going to grab some white, some yellow, golden yellow, and mix up just a really bright yellow. Now, the yellow is amazingly transparent. I could use the opaque yellow, but I don't want to. So to make it opaque, what I've done is I've mixed it with opaque white, and then you got it. So now what I'm going to do is I got to put a fairly decently heavy coat on this. So the way you do that, believe it or not, you think, airbrush, you got to lay it in there. But for paintbrush, you actually have to use a really light touch, because if you push it down, you get what I just did there. You see these paintbrush strokes? So what you want to do is you want to have the paint just kind of flowing off the brush with just barely touching it. So once you get it started, it works just like an ink pen. It just pulls the paint off. Now this is still tragically transparent, so we're going to have to go over this again, but that's all right. We don't mind that. Now, the airbrush probably would have been a better choice here, because if I cut out a simple mask for this, I could have sprayed it white and then sprayed a little bit of yellow on top, and I would have done in no time. Here I'm going to have to do a couple coats of this guy to get this to kind of be opaque where I need it. But again, if you don't want to get into doing a bunch of airbrushing, if you just love paintbrushing, that's what we're going for tonight. More paintbrush than airbrush. So here's my first coat of that. I could have painted the first coat white, but it still would have taken a lot to get that yellow to not be real super streaky. So I still would have had to go over it a bunch of times. So we're going to do it that way. This is fleshy eyes like scars, man, big pumpkin seeds. That's awesome. All right, so for the pumpkin part of it, we're going to get that going while I'm waiting for that to dry. So the pumpkin part, again, I want the light maybe kind of behind him, casting the shadow. So the front of him and his chest, his rib cage are going to be kind of ultimately really dark. So his face will be dark too. So again, that's going to be a time-saving thing. We're going to use orange for that because, pumpkins are orange. But here's the drill with this. Because his face is going to be kind of silhouetted, so his eyes and mouth really pop out. They're going to be black, almost black. I really don't have to worry about the top edge of this. So same deal here. Orange, you come up with a kind of a bright orange using a little bit of the golden yellow and the opaque white. And we're just going to kind of get that edge in here. So let's start with the top, since that's got to be the lightest. I'll kind of avoid the stem a little bit. And then don't forget, the pumpkin has all those cool little veins in it. So we're going to start with that too. So I can kind of use the paintbrush to kind of get those started. Again, orange is this is opaque orange too. When you paintbrush with this stuff, it is almost, I would consider it transparent. Even the opaque. Because again, that's not a bad thing. That's just what Createx is. They're not designed for paintbrush work. You can do paintbrush work with them, but you have to think about it differently. You guys got stuff going on. Awesome. I'm not going to try to keep up with the comments right now because it's easier to just get the painting done. All right, so now I've got a lot of paintbrush stuff on there, so I'm going to use the airbrush to kind of dry that off. And I'm using any of the bigger brushes like the Eclipse or, any of your bigger airbrushes will move a lot more air than the Micron. So that's usually the one I grab when I'm doing stuff like this. Yay, that's good. Nice. Jump back to this, grab paintbrush again, and rinse and repeat. So now the yellow is dry. So I'm going to grab a little bit more of that and kind of redo this. And now the second coat you'll see really does a good job. Now that it's got a coat on there, I don't even need to really do a third coat, but if I wanted it super opaque and even, and then a third coat would do it. But I may leave it because it's kind of gives it this, basically, if you like using a brush, one of the reasons you like using a brush is because you like to see the brush strokes. So, again, the beauty is you just kind of figure it out and what you want it to look like. So I'm going to get some of this because I want this to be kind of glowy. The second coat I can put on a little bit thinner and more evenly. I can push the brush down a little bit because now I'm kind of working on a painted surface. He does have a yeah, definitely got a mohair cut right now, but you'll see, it'll work out. It'll work. So again, second coats are always better. This on the top part of it, I actually want the brush strokes. So I'm just going to kind of pull that right down. That orange is horribly transparent. I should have probably painted that white. And that, like I said, that's opaque. But it will work. So we'll leave that there for a second. Actually, I'll get rid of some of the end strokes here, which are blobby. Because those aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon. There, that works. Awesome. All right, how are we looking? I kind of want one more coat on the yellow. Swamp recently got a wireless ultrasonic cutter. Exact knife thing, cuts like butter. Paper cutting out stencil stuff. I'm gonna have to look that up. I have been stuck on, not stuck, but I've been using X-Acto knives for my entire career. And yeah. That's good. Okay. Let's go one more round with the yellow. We still have time. Holy crap, we're burning this down. That's good. This time I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. Make it a little bit more opaque because I'm also going, a little bit more even for the coats now. Nice. All right, kind of filling in the blanks here. I think I'm going to wait on the next step. We'll do the rest of the pumpkin head here. So again, if I was airbrushing this, I'd probably cut out a bunch of masks for all this and just kind of go for it. But since I'm not doing that, I could just paintbrush the pumpkin part of it. So I'm going to take some orange, and this is red oxide down here. Well, actually, I'll use some more red oxide to produce this it's like a blumber, but it's made with red oxide. So it's a red blockside. You can look that up. That's a real color. It is not, but So it's a really dark orange, really, really dark orange. So again, if I cut that out with a stencil and sprayed it in, that's a great way to do it. But for this, I want to just kind of, minimize the amount of airbrushing. Now you can really see that color now. And I'm just going to kind of bring it up into the top part of it. And again, this allows me to rely on the paintbrush part of it to get the, like the details in instead of having to mess with cutting out a template or using the airbrush too much. Let's do a little bit of everything. And again, those little seams in the pumpkin, just pull them up. And this is why I don't have to do the whole pumpkin and orange either, because you're not going to see the orange except for the top. Nice. Also on the palette, see how dark that looks on the palette? Again, when you use a paintbrush, it really makes it more transparent. Again, because it's not designed to do that. However, when you see me airbrush this in a second, you see how dark it gets. with the airbrush. You can get crazy dark. Not, I'm going fast and I'm not being real careful because I want you to just kind of realize you don't have to be like micro small skills. You know what I mean? That's not what I want. I want it to be kind of general so that, you can kind of get a good feel for what you can do with just, paintbrush and a couple airbrushes. Again, when you're doing paintbrush stuff, you got to be aware of the paintbrush strokes. They're going to probably be able to be seen. So you got to, like I'm going with the grain of the pumpkin here just to kind of make it look like it's part of those little seams, even though this is the first pass. There he is. It's looking good. All right. Dry that off real quick. We're still killing it. We have 8 minutes before the giveaway. This is great. So what we're going to do is, believe it or not, the skeleton part of it is the easiest part of it. So once we get the giveaway done, we'll just do the body part of it and he'll be done. All right. Again, drying that off. And I'm going to hit that again. So again, where I'm at with what I can airbrush, I could airbrush all around this and darken it with the airbrush, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use a paintbrush again to darken this a little bit. So the very last little bit I do is with the airbrush, and it's not super crazy detail stuff. Again, I want to kind of make it so that you can see that you don't have to have, super high-end, super detailed skills to pull it off. All right, so same color. Again, every pass makes it a little bit darker. I might add a little bit more black to this just to kind of push it along. I should use a bigger brush too. Nah, we'll use this one. See how that covers. I'm going to start where it's darkest to see what it looks like. Yeah, it looks good. And then again, I want to kind of keep those brush strokes going in the direction, even down here, where it's kind of obnoxious to do these small paintbrush strokes. I'm still going with like the grain of that pumpkin, so that if any of these paintbrush strokes show up, they'll make sense. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like, like under the eye where I have these, where I kind of had to follow the bottom of the eye. That's okay too, because they end up looking like bags under his eyes, which is fine. But if any chance I can get to like keep that going with the grain of the pumpkin, then I'll do that. I think that's going to be dark. And I can also bring these up and continue those little stripes too, because that's where they're going to be eventually anyway. And that's lovely. Now, can I get a stem color out of this? Let's use a yellow and that brownish color, a little bit of orange, a lot more yellow. Yeah, look at that. Stem color. Paint the stem in real quick. It's just going to be the same deal with this. The stem is going to be kind of transparent, so it won't really show up. But we'll get to it. We'll get to it. That's good. All right, do I want to not even airbrush this? Do I want to leave it all as paintbrush? I kind of do, because it's got a kind of a cool vibe to it right now. All right, so let's do the next step then. I'm not going to airbrush this. I'm going to leave it kind of rough and, like paintbrushy. So the next thing to do is to get the carved part of the eyes and everything in, and that's going to be done with orange. So I think what I'm going to do for that orange, though, is just use the red oxide. So what happens here, actually, no, I want to tighten that up just a, man, do I, though? This is what happens. Well, I'm not going to do anything with the eyes, so let's try that first. So this part, all I'm doing is just kind of painting in where the carved part of the pumpkin would be, the thickness of the pumpkin. Yeah, I like this ragged mouth. I was going to clean up the mouth, but I think I'm going to leave it kind of ragged. I like it. Looks more sinistry. That's not a real word either, but, you can use it. So again, I'm just kind of following the, don't use that word, because it's not a real word and people will make fun of you. Unless you tell people it's not a real word. That's fine too. All right, so there we go. So now just by doing that, that gives it that, now it has some depth to it. All right, so since I'm not going to be airbrushing this, I have to darken this up a little bit more. Do a skeleton gold leaf, Gary. Love ya. That's not happening. Hey, Chris, welcome. Chris, this is on Yupo paper. I didn't mention that at the beginning. It's that synthetic, well, it's paper, but it's not. It's synthetic. It's like plastic. It's polypropylene. And it's then I essentially gesso it with Createx Autoborn Sealer. So that's how I got the gray underpainting. All right, so let's darken this up. So the last step, so it'll match the shading I'll do on the body and everything, is this part. But I don't want to use opaque black here. It's just straight up because it'll just cover all that cool, painty brush stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out, actually, what do I got here to work? UVLS. I don't have any unreduced UVLS, which would be perfect, but this will work. This is reduced UVLS satin. Again, same stuff as a UVLS gloss, but just has a satin agent in it. But what I'm using it for is as something to kind of like thin out this black. While keeping the strength of it, it's just going to make it more transparent. Now, I could wash it out with reducer, but now this stuff here is transparent, but it's also really strong. Like it's going to stick really, really well. It also helps it smooth out a little bit too. So let's see what this looks like. And there's not enough of it, not enough black, which is fine. I'd rather go that way. Add a little bit of black to it. What I'm looking for is just something that's going to tint the front of that. What's nice about this is it's going to still show all that brown through it, but it's just going to darken it up. Now this I can start to be a little bit more careful with if I want to, which I kind of do. So I can kind of clean up some stuff that I wasn't really too careful with before. Now obviously opaque black from Createx is opaque. So if I just used opaque black with the paintbrush, it would, like I said, it would just kill this thing. It would just hit it with like massive black. And I don't want that. The other side of that too, like I said, if I was going to airbrush this would be a great opportunity to airbrush with because the airbrush, you have complete control over that layer. So I could add just a real thin layer of black and see how it looks. But again, I need a fair amount of control to not, get overspray on the eyes and everything. Again, with airbrushing, it's a lot of, thinking about the order that you do things. So if I was airbrushing this and I wanted that same, kind of paintbrush stroke type of thing, but I wanted to use the airbrush a little bit more, in that case, I probably would have painted the whole pumpkin and then paintbrushed the eyes and everything on it. So that way I could have painted the whole the whole pumpkin in one shot with all the fades and everything, and then I could have just dropped in the eyes and everything. But with this case, with the paintbrush stuff, it's a little bit easier. All right, so for the stem, I'm going to use the same orangey brown that I used to shade in this part here. But again, because it's so transparent, it's just going to add a little bit of brown to that, like that. There we go. Love it. He looks evil. Linda Blair. Michael, I got to find the self-portrait I did for Mike Learn's site way back. It was supposed to be like The Devil Within. We were supposed to do, the theme was you're supposed to do like a self-portrait, but some sort of like, evil part of you. So I did the Linda Blair in the bed kind of looking over, but it was me instead. And it had an airbrush sticking out of the face. It was a lot of fun. I got to find that. Well, I don't have the painting anymore, but I do have pictures of it. Did you see my comment? No, Gary, what'd you say? Sinister is actually, sinisterly is actually a word meaning the way of acting. You like it? Nice. I am smarter than I thought. How are we looking on time? We are there. Where's Honey yelling at me? This is a perfect time because what we're going to do is we're going to do the body and the hands and the, other stuff, and then this little guy will be done. But that's how he's coming out right now. Actually, I'll switch to this one because this camera has a more natural lighting. I have the light jacked on, or the exposure jacked on that other camera, so you can see what I'm doing. But that gives you better mix on it. What's going to happen here is the hands are going to be almost white. arms are going to be white so that they pop forward. The top of his chest is going to be white, but it's going to fade into like almost black. So it's, you know, kind of tucked in behind that rock, and this little guy's done. But yeah, it's coming out good. You can see all the paintbrush work on that. Woo! So let's give away this painting, or a painting, or something. I don't know. Showtime! See, honey, I was listening today. All right, so for those who weren't here for the beginning, the one and only 543 tonight comes to you from your very favorite Western Massacre Lock Sport, your friend and mine, Mr. Cheese Grits and NyQuil. The suggestion was a clear lock, and yeah, this is what I got. So it was a lot of fun to do this. I'm really getting into all this. I haven't actually picked a lock yet, but I'm doing my homework first, and I will fill you all in as things get going. But follow all these great lock pickers on here now. Cheese basically dragged all his friends over here, which I am super happy about. So this is what we got. So there's your thing. All right, so we have only 3 people on the list tonight. There's tons of people who have won, but we only have 3 on the list, and those 3 are our new member, well, our newer member. I have Adam on there, but it's Adam. Todd and Chuck are all on the list. So you have a 33% chance of winning, ladies and gentlemen, if you're on that list. So let's do that thing and give away that painting. 3. Boom. Oh, finally. Not that I don't want Chuck or Adam to win, but Todd's been waiting. There you go, Todd. Congratulations. You have won. Congratulations. 33.3. It's repeating, actually, Gary. It's a great World of Warcraft video. That's just that. 33.3. 33.3 repeating, actually. Anyway, nerd alert. So congratulations, Todd. There we go. Yeah, so Todd won. So Todd, if you are here, I just saw Rhea. But Todd, if you're here and you want to, well, there's all kinds of stuff. I don't know if you want lockpicking stuff, or if you might want this one. I don't know. But whatever, Todd, you know what to do. Todd, I might even have some of your suggestions up there because I know I did a few. There he is. All right, so Todd, you know what to do. If you do win, the rules are really simple. You just send me a message privately, so you don't give everyone your address. So you can do it through my website, which is the best way to do it because the other messaging sites are whacked, Facebook and Instagram. I don't always get them, but I'll always get them through from my website. All you got to do is tell me what pick you want and where am I sending it to, and that's all you got to do. It's pretty easy. There is no window. I mean, I would prefer you grab it sooner than later because it gets confusing if a bunch of people have won and they haven't picked paintings, but I don't hunt you down, and that never expires. So even if you wait a year and say, oh my gosh, I never picked one, just get a hold of me and we will make that right because I do keep track. So there's that. Yay. So the only thing I'm asking, Todd, that if you want either the lock or tonight's pumpkin, dude, just let me know before the end of the feed and I will not put them up online. But if Todd wants something else, which he's more than welcome to, these 2 will go up online. Fun. Let's get this done. All right. So for the rest of him. So again, here's what I want. I want the hands to pop forward. So anything that's light is going to jump out at you. Anything that's dark is going to recede from you. Now that's the general rule. You can break that rule, but that's the general rule in realism that light things will just kind of pop out, will grab more attention than dark things. The dark things will recede essentially. So knowing that, I want the hands to be bright. The chest I want to kind of go behind that rock. So the bottom part of it is going to be shadowed. But his shoulders are in the light, so I kind of want them to kind of come forward. Now they're going to be tough because they're up against the shadowy, background. But don't forget, this is, we're going to use a lot of opaque white. So I know, shut up and just do it. Yes, Gary, and you can also do that. What Gary just said. If you want to take $100 off a painting, like an actual painting that's on there, feel free. There is no instance where I give you back money. So if you want like the cherry painting, which is $50, that does not come with a $50 bill. you just get a $50 credit on something else. Also, I didn't mention it in the thingo, but if anyone purchases or chooses the lock painting from tonight, you're going to get the Cheese Grits and NyQuil sticker, because he sent me 3 of them and I'm super grateful. So I'm going to pass this one on to whoever wins. He started this madness for me. It's his fault. All right, let's get this done. So this is easy. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to paint all the skeleton stuff white. Super easy, right? And we're just going to use a little bit of airbrushing and paintbrushing to kind of make it all work. So I'm going to drop out a new drop of white that's really nice and opaque. Make sure you shake your paint. Check the website. All right, perfect. Perfect, Todd. Love it. And I'm going to do the disclaimer now. I've been horrible about taking some of the winners' paintings down off the site. So there is a remote chance that I will email you right back when you pick one and say, hey, I don't have that one. You may have to pick another one. But I've tried to get better with that. I'm just, I'm me. What could go wrong? All right, white. Paintbrush, super easy. Well, relatively super easy. All I'm going to do is kind of like go in, and the same thing with the white. What I want to do is I want to think about the brush strokes, because now I have brush strokes. So I want to kind of run with the bones. That way, no matter what shows up, because even the opaque white won't go on opaque right from the start. It's going to need, if I want it opaque, I'm going to have to do a couple coats, which on some of this I do. So I always want to, kind of paint with the grain, you know what I'm saying? So that way, if I have some of those paintbrush strokes showing, it looks, looks like the bone. Looks like it's intentional. It's all about being intentional. All right, so fingers again, we want these to be bright. So I'm going to probably go over these again. But same deal, I just want to keep those strokes going in the direction. Not that you would paint the fingers sideways, but, who knows? Yeah, if you could, you definitely can do that, Todd. If you get the Chevelle painting for, oh, that had yellow in it. No. Yeah, if you did that, you'd get the Chevelle. If you do, incidentally, Todd, if that is something that you do want, if you want to use it as a credit, or anyone wants to use them as a credit, that's something you just send me a message with too. And then I can work it out on my end. All right, try that again with less yellow. Yeah, the Chevelle painting is actually one of the Open Studio paintings, which is kind of cool. So that the Open Studio paintings are the paintings I do on Wednesday, and I do the entire painting, start to finish, in episodes online. So the Chevelle painting, you can see it right from the moment I take the panel, the ampersand panel out of the board, out of the package, all the way to the end. So the framing and everything. Working on Tokyo now, which I'm going to say the same disclaimer I said last week because I'm running behind. I haven't done the video for that yet. I'm going to try to get that done tomorrow. If I cannot get it done tomorrow, then I'll do Open Studio Live on Wednesday. So we'll definitely do Open Studio, but it just might be a live Open Studio instead of a pre-recorded one. But I should be able to get it done. So basically what this becomes, this first pass essentially, is the underpainting. And underpainting is a real common thing with most types of painting, where you just get it started. You know what I mean? You're not like painting in the final pass in one shot. That, for me, that never happens because it just makes for a non-complex painting. It looks weak when you do that. When do you sleep? Ian, late this past weekend, none. But thanks for asking. All right, so I gotta let that dry. Yeah, it was. So the Reader's Digest, I wasn't gonna mention anything, but I'm gonna mention it because I'm me. I'm big. I'm 6'3", and one thing that 6'3", tall people have some sort of issue with a lot of times is grace. And I have been known to trip up stairs in my life pretty often. But this was one of the rare times that I actually slipped on the last step coming down. And I whacked my back really good. So I'm fine, though. You know, it all worked out, I think. So far, there was no internal bleeding. So, you know, I'm taking it as a win. But yeah, it was a fun weekend. All right. So that's it. So again, airbrush. I didn't airbrush on that. I just used the air to dry that off. All right. So now I can start thinking about those bright areas, because I don't have to redo the whole thing, except the areas that like have like the most light. So the shoulders, his shoulders, maybe the top of his collarbone, you know, those are going to be real bright. Maybe the top of his arms here, the shoulder blade as well. You know, these things are going to get some light. So we're going to kind of make sure that they have the most brilliance to them. And then down on the fingers, I definitely want to, you know, make sure his fingers are bright, because I want them to really pop forward. Now, I kind of came up with this image by piecing a whole bunch of stuff together. But you can just grab a pre-made image. You know, if you're doing it for you, you don't have to worry about copyrights and other people's work. I mean, if you're taking stuff off of someone else's work, you know, definitely give them credit if you're going to post it, so that they can be, you know, they can see what you're doing, and, you know, I'm sure they'd love it. A lot of artists love that when they're, you know, they inspire someone else, but they're giving credit for it at the same time. But so if you can't draw, for instance, if you don't feel your drawing is your strength, you know, you can use someone else's stuff. Just make sure you give them credit. You know what I mean? And if you're just doing it for you and you're not going to post it, you know, again, credit is great. A lot of artists would love to see, you know, how their art is being, you know, used or inspiring other people. But, you know, common sense. You never want to post it without giving people credit, and you certainly don't want to sell it without giving credit too. Marge was not behind me because I fell backwards, Chris. I actually slipped out. I was down at the bottom step, or second to bottom step, and I was wearing socks on the stairs, and I was dumb, and my foot that I had all my weight on just slipped forward, went off the step, and I fell backwards into the steps and blasted my back. It was fun. How's that looking? I'm happy with that. All right, so we're going to put a little bit of detail here. Again, opaque black is going to be a problem here, so I'm not going to use it. Again, it's not a hard, steadfast rule with 543s, but when you start including gray scales in a black and white painting, it is exactly like introducing color. You can see that gray. It's much different than any of the fades that you would get with the airbrush. So you could see it. So by doing that, you're introducing a new color. And that can change the vibe of it. So for instance, like I'm going to start putting details into his skeleton body here. If I use gray, you're going to see it as a much different gray than all the other stuff. So again, I try not to do it so that it, you know, doesn't always, you know, it looks the way it should, basically. All right, so some of the knuckle areas. Again, I don't want to get too crazy because I want the hand to remain pretty bright. So I'm just basically putting the details in, like the joints, only on the areas that would be in the shadow. You know what I'm saying? And then the division, like where his wrists are, same thing. Actually, I probably did that on the wrong side, but whatever, that's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah. Here we go. I am going to airbrush him too, so again, you'll see what that does as well. Because shading is clearly in the realm of airbrushing. The airbrush loves to do shading. It's what it's built for. And this is where I can also pull out that, you know, the collarbone and the top edge, and also things like push the spine back. So the spine is obviously behind the rib cage. And then eventually I'm going to have all this dark, so I can start like putting in extra details in here, which will be nice. And these extra details here, kind of go with the whole background as well. This is all going to be really dark down in here anyway. So by doing this, I'm just kind of like getting the ball rolling on it, you know? There we go. Yeah. Oh, stop, Ian. All right, airbrushy time. What do I have in here? I have the light one. This is good. All right, so now I get to start working on like pushing everything back where it should. Right now his whole body is popped forward, and I don't want that. It's a weird looking arm. I don't like that. I'm going to straighten out his arm a little bit. This arm here has a weird, it's supposed to be foreshortened, but I don't like the way it came out. So we're going to straighten it out just a little bit. Okay, that's better. All right, so now I get to start playing with it. Again, dark areas will recede, light areas will pop forward. I've done all the lightest areas now. If I need to pop them up again, I can do that, but this should be, you know, kind of a one and done thing. So same thing here. Now I'm going to kind of get real close to the edge of this boulder and try to keep it really sharp. If you wanted to, you know, even with a simple stencil like this paper towel here that's kind of rough, I could just kind of block that off. I wouldn't need anything super expensive. You know, you don't have to buy pre-made templates or anything. You just use whatever you got. And then for the shading, literally the shading, what do I have that can I show you on? Paper towel. Whee. So paper towel. So the shading is being back about 2 to 3 inches. No, maybe 1.5 inches. And just lightly going back and forth. And that's the same thing. So if I wanted it really dark, the way I get that is to just keep going over it. It's not that I'd be like doing like a dark area and then fading it up into a light area like that. It isn't like that. It's like doing a real light area and then adding more at the bottom to get that shading. Now again, I'm using a micron here, but if you're working on a much bigger, you know, a much bigger thing than 3x4, you can use a bigger airbrush, a cheaper airbrush, a less expensive airbrush. I shouldn't say cheaper because like the Eclipse is a great airbrush and it's less than a micron, but still a really nice brush. But any of the, you know, lesser expensive airbrushes, the bigger airbrushes. All right, so we're going to start by just kind of like going over the bottom of his rib cage really lightly and taking a step back and seeing how that looks. So it looks good. I want to make sure his collarbones kind of stay white. And then before I do like more on his chest cavity here, I'm going to like move to the hands and arms because I want to kind of push everything all at the same time. So same thing, I want this arm here to kind of move backwards a little bit in space. So I'm just going to kind of shade the bottom of it and right where the elbow attachment is. This is not anatomically correct if you haven't noticed already. I just kind of winged it. Same thing on the bottom. I'm just going to kind of shade the bottom of his arms to kind of give that a little bit more weight. The nice thing is there's nothing, I don't have to worry about getting paint on the rock because that becomes the shadow. You know what I mean? So I've already got it there, the shadow in there, but this just, you know, kind of, it's okay if it gets a little bit darker. Same thing with the fingers. I got to be real careful on the fingers because while I want to give them a little bit of roundness by shading the dark side of them, I want them to stay really brilliantly white. So I'm really being careful. This takes the most amount of skill that we've done tonight. It's just being able to get a little bit closer and just, you know, spray right on the edge that you want to shade. So some of it's going over on the rock, some of it's going over on the finger, but yet it keeps those fingers really bright. Yeah, he's a fun guy. I like him. Same thing on this hand, same deal. I just want to kind of really lightly make a couple passes on the bottoms of his fingers. I don't care that it's going out onto the rock. In fact, I want it to, because that's what finishes off that shadow. I've already kind of established a shadow, but this just kind of finishes it off. Same thing here. I want his wrist to kind of move back in space a little bit so the hand pops out. So I just do the, you know, the shading right beyond there. And the same thing with his arm in general. You know, I kind of want this arm to kind of fade back a little bit. So I'll just run it up here. And now that I'm there, I can kind of work on things like the collarbone, tuck in his head a little bit by just shading underneath so that his head kind of casts that shadow on his the front of him here. And then again, right around the arm, and yay. All right, so that's good. Ribs are looking kind of good. So now the fun part is all that's left, and that's just to kind of pop out a few things. And that's always, so when I end a painting, it's always the lightest lights and the darkest darks. Those are what get put in at the end. So this painting is no exception. So I'm going to grab some of the opaque white here. I'm just going to pick stuff like across the shoulder blade, the tops of some of these ribs. I'm going to brighten up the shoulders a little bit, top of his arm, and that kind of thing. So anywhere where the light is coming straight down. Now, this is the beautiful part too. If I, like with all the hands, if I didn't do a great job at that, if I wasn't too careful, it's still okay. Because what I can do is I can come in with the white and then again, just highlight the tops of his fingers. And this is not hard to do. You know, this is just kind of like putting all the paint on the top, you know, top where it would be on the top of his fingers. And this will help clean it up if I have to, and also just brighten it up in general to really help it pop forward. And that's pretty much it. Now, we talked through the whole thing, so it took about, what are we at now? An hour and 22 minutes with the giveaway. This is about right for this 543, you know, to be about hour and 20 minutes. Again, if I was doing this painting on something, you know, if I want to spend a bunch of time on this, yeah, I could go nuts on it. You know, there are a lot of things that I would do, you know, a little bit more intensely, mostly with the details. But out of the gate, you know, you kind of get that feel. What I am going to do though for you, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'll switch it up here. I'm going to switch the exposure a little bit because you guys have it really bright right now. I'm going to dump it down to where it kind of really is, like there. And that's what we got. Scary pumpkin dude. So again, you know, the tricks are, oh, you know what? I could do that. I got the black in the brush. I've got all this airbrushing going on down in his chest, but none in the pumpkin head. So it makes it look like this is paintbrushed and this is airbrushed. I never want that kind of stuff going on. I want it to be just kind of like, I use whatever I needed to use. So I'm just going to take the black and I'm just going to go right along the edge of the dark area here, just to soften that transition a little bit. I still want to see all the paintbrush stuff. I don't want to cover that. I want to put a big black band on this. But I just want to soften this up a little bit, and maybe a little bit on the stem too. There we go. That's better. Maybe even a little bit more under his chin, just to kind of push the two together. And he looks good. The other thing I try to do with 543s, because space is limited, is I always try to leave a spot that I can sign it. So that's what this is going on down here. So we'll sign this guy. And we'll date it, 25. The only thing left to do is to clear this. Now, because I paintbrushed, I did a lot of paintbrush stuff on this. It's probably going to take about 4 to 5 coats of UVLS satin to even it out a little bit, but it'll be cool. So there you go. Hooray, we did it. We did a thing. We painted stuff. And Todd won. I'm happy about that. So, oh, I didn't turn the palette cam back on, but that's okay too. We did it. I'm going to lean back here a little bit. Take some of the weight off. Beauties. And there we go. That's what we did. I got lights in the way. But congratulations to Todd. Thank you so much to Honey for the super chat. If there was other people, I'm sorry I missed you. I think there was. I'm brain dead. Thank you for Ian for jumping back on board. Yeah, so schedule is great. I totally forgot to mention, if you are a member here, you can go over and watch the time-lapse video of the lock. That is the time-lapse Tuesday for the week. So you can see how I painted that painting, the cheese grits lock. If you, what am I trying to say? If you're not a member, it'll go live tomorrow at 10 a.m. I am like, yeah, I'm out. And then Wednesday's open studio, and then we're back to normal. So I hope you enjoyed this. A little bit more paintbrushy than airbrushy, but again, that's what the goal was. So it worked out for Halloween, so I'm happy with that. I don't know what I'm doing next week, so if you have any suggestions for me, just, yell out, send me a message or whatever. I have plenty to work on. I'm still working on, there's a big painting that needs to be done right away. And then I have a hockey helmet that's going to be coming in, which will be a lot of fun. I don't know how much you guys will see of that, but that's good. And then as soon as November hits, I'll be back open for commissions. It's been really rough trying to get the timing down for that, but we're just about back. So that's what we got. All right. Thank you very much. You guys are amazing. I love you so much. So have a great week, and hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday. And that's what I got. So take care. All right. Now I'm going to reach over and push this button and drop stuff.